Today, I am so excited to have on Julina Ogilvie. Julina and I met probably 15, 16 months ago through my brother. You met with him originally,
Yes. Yep.
which he told me this morning. I didn't remember that. He said you guys got coffee and then
Yes.
said you need to meet my brother. And then that's how we connected, I think at Harborview maybe for the first time for a coffee, which is in Black Rock and Bridgeport. Super excited to have you on today. When we first sat down, I was one, impressed, and two, so interested in one, the family, your business, but racing, Ironman, commitment to fitness, which is so impressive.
Oh, it's all relative. We can talk about that.
You don't talk it up, but it is very impressive. An Ironman is a 2.5 mile swim, 2.6. Or what is it?
2.4.
2.4.
You're testing me. Yes, 2.4.
Mile swim, 112 mile bike.
Correct.
Which would be to Newport. If anybody was wondering how far that is, Newport, Rhode Island from Fairfield, Connecticut.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yep.
And a marathon, running a marathon, all in the same time frame.
Yeah.
You've done it twice now, I think.
I've done
Fulls.
2 fulls, correct.
And 13 halves or 11 halves.
I've done
around
think
there.
around
It doesn't matter. I have to get to like
13
5. It's
halves in Olympics. There's a lot of different distances, but yes, you're right.
So a half is just divide all those by half, which is still very impressive.
Yeah, that usually takes about 6 hours. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your time was 13:42.
Yes.
Most recently.
In Nice, it was 13:42.
Love it.
It was a little longer than usual because the elevation of the bike was 8,000 feet.
Wow.
Which was intimidating.
If you don't bike, you don't know what that is, but 8,000 feet, if you bike 20 miles in the beach area, you might, get 400 feet. It's crazy though, 8,000.
Yeah. If you're a skier, I ski at Okemo, it's 4 Okemos.
Wow.
So
unbelievable.
I figured that out.
Yeah, literally. So you grew up Summit, New Jersey.
I did. I'm a Jersey girl.
That's central northernish Jersey,
It's
right?
northernish.
Oh, it's considered northern.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually 20 minutes from Newark Airport.
Oh, unbelievable.
I don't have an exit though.
Really? Tough to get to? It's really the suburbs.
Yeah, everyone refers in New Jersey to exits, and we didn't really have one, so.
Tough. We started going to
If
Philadelphia.
you're not from Jersey, you won't understand.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into it. Though, yeah. So you went to Summit High there. Uh-huh. You have a brother and a sister.
Correct.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm the oldest.
Oh, awesome. Mm-hmm. Your brother's a couple years younger?
He's 7 years younger than me. My sister's 2.5 years younger.
Awesome.
Yep.
You go to Colgate.
I did.
How'd you like Colgate?
Loved it.
Small school up north.
Tiny school. And my girls are getting ready to. My oldest, is starting the process, and so I'm nudging. We'll see.
What year is she?
She's a sophomore.
Kaylin? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, awesome. Yep. Nudging Colgate.
Nudging.
Where'd your husband go?
He's a URI grad.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
Kaylin's a skier, too.
She's
Speaking
a skier.
about chemo.
Yes. Yeah.
Unreal. So, grew up in Summit. Your brother lives in Jersey still, right?
Yes.
Where's your sister's in?
She's in Hilton Head.
Awesome. With your mom?
My mom, yeah, right down the road.
Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. You go down there a little bit.
We go down a couple times a year. Yeah, my family's very close with my sister's family. So
love that.
Yeah.
Oh, does she have kids too? And
yeah, they're the same age.
Girls?
So, 2 girls.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
I know. Yeah, it's good.
I knew you were down there from the Strava runs because I was actually in at Palmetto Bluffs at the same time you were there.
Oh, that's right.
That was so funny.
That's right. I love Strava.
It's the best. It really is. And then Dad's in Florida.
Yes, he's in the Keys.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you go down to the Keys at all? During the winter?
No,
okay.
I don't go down as often. I did just go down there for a wellness check on him. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, good.
Yep.
In the last month?
No, it was the end of last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you went to Colgate, you graduate. What would you like about the school, by the way? Because not a ton of people know Colgate.
No.
But it's got a great reputation.
It's got a great reputation. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so you have to appreciate that.
What town is it
It's in Hamilton, New York.
Oh, okay.
And so...
Is it Hamilton College there?
No.
Oh.
Funny enough, Hamilton College is in Clinton, New York.
Gotcha.
But it's kind of this triangle in between Utica, Binghamton, and, Syracuse maybe? I'm already blanking out, but you got to go way up there. And I know a lot of kids today that are graduating want the big college school, the football. But if you're okay with being in a small boutique school, one of the reasons I chose Colgate was it had a very high reputation when I graduated. I think it still does. for just the Colgate connection and just, helping in terms of your success and your future. And I try to talk to students that are graduating. And so I think that was helpful to me. So hopefully the trend continues.
Well, it happens when alumni do it and you're doing it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
I hope so.
Great alumni connections there. I think of the same thing with high school, with prep, and even Fordham.
Yes.
Like same thing, and always willing to reach out and help current students or fresh grads.
And just living in Fairfield, anyone that went to Fairfield Prep is very proud of it. It's a very similar.
With Colgate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is so funny.
I laugh when people show all their pride with Fairfield Prep. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Well, Colgate D1AA, they played Fordham.
Yes.
In sports. I remember like football and basketball, they'd come down to our small stadium.
Yeah, they've done a good job with their division. So, Patriot League.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Yep.
That's so funny. Yep. So, graduate from Colgate, valedictorian.
No.
I'm kidding.
I was like, where did you get that? I graduated.
Yeah. Studied finance, or what'd you study there?
I studied economics and Spanish.
Really?
Yes.
Do you still speak it?
Oh, not enough.
Un poco?
Not,
would have been the correct answer. But then you started at Lord Abbott.
Yes, right after I graduated.
How long were you at Lord Abbott, and what did you do there?
I was at Lord Abbott for 14 years.
By the way, there's not going to be all finance people probably
Yes.
listen. What is Lord Abbott?
Lord Abbott's a mutual fund company. They're one of the oldest, 1929. They were based out of Manhattan when I started with them. Then they moved to Jersey City, New Jersey. I was with them for 14 years. I was a wholesaler, both internal and external, which means that you work with all the financial advisors within your respective territory. So you would help them understand our view of the markets, the economy. This is what our mutual funds can do. And you would hope that financial advisor would choose your S&P 500 type of mutual fund
product
over another.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I did that both internally in the home office. I did it externally. I covered the Northeast. And then I also covered national accounts. So I was responsible for large firm relationships like A.G. Edwards, Smith Barney, which is no longer around, Edward Jones, and a number of others. So
you started in 97-ish?
I did.
And were there till like?
So 2011.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what is a mutual fund? To get really basic,
no.
It's a basket of.
It's a basket of securities, and the mutual fund can have different objectives. So it can be I mentioned earlier an S&P 500. So it could be a basket of securities that invests in just S&P 500 companies. A mutual fund is typically managed by a portfolio manager and a team that's choosing what companies within the S&P 500 to buy.
Awesome.
You could also have a mutual fund that just focuses on small companies or international companies or bonds, and different types of bonds. So the objective could be very specific. It could be very broad.
It could be an objective to beat market returns. It could also be just to preserve capital, probably, right?
Exactly.
So you could customize it for every client or each person's needs.
Yeah, I think understanding and looking under the hood as to what they do is important. I see a lot of these studies that talk about, well, the average mutual fund doesn't beat the S&P. And I kind of sometimes will criticize that because, to your point, not a lot of these mutual funds have the objective to do that. But, I think doing the due diligence is important.
Super important. And I think, too, is like you also have to look at the S&P hasn't been down recently a lot, but there are probably, well, yeah, right. No, never, almost never. Not since I've been of age. But, in down years, a mutual fund is going to hopefully produce better returns or at least stay flat, maybe.
Yeah.
What the goal.
Yeah, that's, I think, the ultimate goal is, if you're finding, for example, a mutual fund that targets the S&P, you want to look historically and see, well, how do they do against it, right?
Yep.
And then just to make it even more complicated, they could be investing, this is important right now, they can be investing in the S&P, but maybe they have a growth objective versus a value objective. So think of like dividend-paying stocks, quality, versus the mega growth AI, the media calls it the Magnificent Seven, that have candidly been driving the return of the market for the last 2 years.
So growth stock like that you just said is like an Amazon. Yeah,
absolutely. Amazon, Tesla, NVIDIA.
NVIDIA is for the top one everybody's talking about.
Right.
Dividend is Coca-Cola type?
Yeah, anything that's kind of high quality, dividend paying.
Gotcha.
So usually people think of like utilities, financials. It's not always that. Like Apple does pay a reasonable dividend, but that's a generally speaking.
Awesome.
If that helps.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
You start internal wholesaling. You go to the account manager, like you said, where you manage the broker-dealer relationships.
Yep.
And then you became a wholesaler to work with other advisors. You covered Western Mass, Albany, and Vermont, right?
I covered, and
Is that...
it moved around. And then I think, yes, at Lord Abbott, it was Western Mass, upstate New York, Eastern,
Yep.
all the way to Canada. And then it was Westchester, down into Westchester. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you leave because you started having kids at that time? Or you went on maternity leave?
I went on maternity leave.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How long? 6 months?
No.
Oh, 3
Should've been.
weeks.
I was on maternity leave for 4 weeks.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
God! Actually,
and I had a C-section.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that doesn't happen anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, it's probably longer. Also, finance though. I feel like there's not a lot of time off. You're back into the business quick.
Yeah, to be honest, I was a little anxious to get back because that was during. So she was born in 2009, so that was kind of going through the financial crisis.
Oh.
And I could feel my sales slipping because Lord Abbott was a heavy bond shop and people were buying bonds at the time.
Gotcha. So you could see the numbers and you're like, oh, I'm missing out a little bit.
Yeah, isn't that terrible to say?
But like a competitive person,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
And listen, I don't any newborn is not necessarily cute at 2 weeks
Yeah.
or 4 weeks. They start getting cute later on. So
yeah.
I don't know.
That-
My daughter is listening to this. She'll kill me for saying that. But
So, well, let's go back a little. You meet Doug in 2004, 5?
Yep, 4.
Awesome. You were living in Larchmont at the time.
Yes.
He was in Norwalk.
Yep.
And you guys date. When did you get married? How many years later?
Oh crap.
Oh, rough idea. Not to throw you on the spot.
07. 07.
So funny. And he's in the finance world though too.
He is. Yeah, he
Right?
is.
He does prime brokerage.
He did a lot of he
Or
did
he
prime
used to.
brokerage
Yeah.
when he was at AIG, and so now he's in the city at Barclays, and
Awesome.
he's got a broader role.
Oh,
So,
unbelievable.
yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so when did you guys move out, into, I don't know, Fairfield or...
So when we got married, we moved to South Salem, New York, and then we moved in 2019 to Fairfield.
No way.
Yeah, we
So where
wanted
you
to-
are now?
We wanted to be in more of a town. As a skiing family, we wanted to be closer to Vermont, and I actually at the time had intended on staying at JP Morgan, and I wanted to be in my territory, which was Connecticut.
Gotcha.
So that changed, but
Yep.
that was the intent.
Oh my, so Lord Abbott, you go to JP in 2011 or so.
Yes.
How did your role change? Or not much at all?
The role didn't change much at all. It was, I guess the biggest thing was I had just had a baby, or number 2. And the transition was difficult in that it was trying to manage 2 girls traveling. And then I had a whole new territory. So it was all new clients, and it was a different geography. So it was Connecticut. It was Rhode Island, and then
Yep.
later on I picked up Western Mass again. I was like, how can I get away from Western Mass?
That is so funny.
So it was a lot of geography at the time. Yeah.
And you were in the wholesaling role there.
Yes. So I was out traveling visiting financial advisors' offices on a daily basis.
Oh, every day. I mean, that's your client.
Pretty much every day. Yeah. Yeah. This was pre-pandemic.
Yep.
So the expectation was you were on the road. There were a lot of evening events, which I think is part of the reason I transitioned. I was always asked to present to clients or prospects on the market, the economy. They liked having a woman because there was only a couple of us in the territory, and I was told often that I could explain it in
Simpler terms.
a simple
And probably connect better with any women in the audience.
I hope so, because that was
The
the
goal?
message I received, and that was the goal. But,
Hopefully you executed.
Yeah, and
I'm sure you did.
I really did enjoy it, and I think it's one of the. I know we'll talk about the podcast, but
Yeah.
I think it's one of the reasons that I continued to do the speaking that I do. It's just a little bit of a different format, as you know.
Yes. What made you want to make the change going from a wholesaler, who your main client is a financial advisor,
Correct.
to becoming into the financial advising business? Now you are who your clients were. You're advising clients at this point. What made that shift? And you didn't start in advising. I know it was business development, but
Yeah, I didn't.
Right?
I was struggling in the beginning because, to be honest, when you are calling on financial advisors for 20 years, it was they loved telling me like what was wrong with their clients. So you just heard a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
And so I think I was very hesitant about taking that role. However, I really did want to continue to help people. When I had my presentations and I was speaking to individuals and they told me they understood the markets, I felt like I was creating value. And so I wanted to be able to do that in maybe more of a directional way. Instead of being sort of having an advisor be the buffer.
Paying a telephone through someone else.
Yeah, and that was part one. Part two was I did become very disenchanted with the industry in that a lot of the financial advisors that I called on them for 20 years. You meet a lot of advisors, thousands and thousands in the Northeast, and there are some fantastic advisors. However, there was so much frustration with how advisors become very lazy, cookie cutter, and don't respond to clients, and that was very frustrating. And so I chose the firm that I did because the founder, first of all, is young. He's younger than me, is growing the firm in a very smart way. We are not buying other firms and just acquiring to acquire. We are doing it in a smart way, and we have a customized solution in every aspect of how we work with clients. And that's all I was looking for.
That is awesome.
Seems so simple. And yet when I made the transition, I could really count on one hand how many advisors I should be talking to. So
that's Rob. Who?
Bob, yeah.
How did you guys connect?
He was my client for over 10 years.
Oh, no way. When you were at JP?
When I was at JP, his old firm that he was at, that's how we knew each other. When he separated and created his own firm, he started talking to me about, have you considered? And so he did that we talked for a couple years, I think.
No way.
Yeah, it was hard. I loved what I did. And so it's hard to walk away from something you love. However, I had my frustrations about the industry in general, and the girls were old enough to know when mom was not home at night, right? When they get older, they know. When they're babies, they don't know. So that was probably my
tipping point.
Tipping point was probably that. Also having the woman who took care of our girls for 7 years, who's unbelievable. The fact that she knew more about my girls than I did and would take them to the doctor, the dentist. She knew all the moms. That was very frustrating. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of reflection like looking internally though to realize that and make a change.
When you have to text her and be like, how much does Kaylin weigh? What's her height?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Cool that you made the change. I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm
the course corrected a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Loved JP Morgan, and I still think the world of them, but I don't regret the shift for me more personally. Yeah.
How did your day-to-day change since making the shift?
Well, the day-to-day changed when the pandemic literally hit as I made the transition. So that was interesting. Sort of being in a brand new office, starting from scratch, and getting to know the community. It shifted completely.
Yeah, that is so funny. So,
and it was interesting because all of my colleagues at JP Morgan were checking in on me. They're all working from home.
Yep.
And they're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Well, I'm at my brand new office."
That's so funny.
They're like, "How do you like working from home?" So it was a funny
busting your
joke.
balls.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so your office is now in Westport.
Correct.
You hosted an event there a month ago, which was great, which was fantastic.
Thank you.
Road ahead, economic trend, market opportunities in 2025. You had, was it Kyle on your team? Was there?
Kyle is our analyst on our team, so he was one of the 3 members, sort of roundtable.
You had Lord Abbott. I forgot his first name. Who's there? From New Jersey.
Yes. Oh crap! I'm blanking out.
It's okay. We're gonna cut that. Just kidding. No.
Because it wasn't the wholesaler. And I used to work with him. It's going to come to me at the end. Well,
that's so funny when we pull back. Yeah. And then was it and then you had JP Morgan.
So I had both Lord Abbott and JP Morgan there. So it was kind of fun to have my
motley crew.
World.
Yes. That is awesome. Yeah. That was a great event, by the way.
Thank you.
I loved it. I was there for the first hour, but fantastic. I did drive to Oakville that night. I don't even know if you know where that is, but it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, afterwards.
I don't even know where that is.
I know. Yeah. After Westport was bad.
Is that in Connecticut?
Yeah. Watertown. Yeah.
I was going to say, after wholesaling JP Morgan.
Oh, you would have known.
You think I would know?
Yeah.
Must mean that there's no Edward Jones office there.
Yeah.
They're usually in the small towns, and I had to go call on them. But
that is so funny.
Yeah.
So your office is in Westport.
Yeah.
The main office, there's one in Madison as well.
The main office is in Madison, which is where pretty much all of our employees are. So I kind of represent the Westport, Fairfield County focus. And the firm is up in Madison.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Going into 2025, I want to know, before we talk about the year, clients that you help. Who do you guys specialize in? Who do you really enjoy working with? Who would be a good fit for you?
Yeah.
And, well, most of your clients are around, where in their life are they?
So I'm going to break the answer into two, because we do have 7 advisors at the firm. And so everyone is a little bit unique. However, with that said, we do have a theme that we want to work with clients that want help, need help, and are willing to delegate. That's kind of our rule of 3, and finding the combination of that isn't always easy.
Yeah.
So we don't really, our goal is not to work with everyone. Number 2 is the majority of our clients throughout all 7 advisors are either approaching retirement or in retirement. So from a very traditional perspective, myself, for example, I have a lot of that, but I'm also barbelled with, and maybe it's because of the podcast, but I do work with a lot of women. They are either divorced, they've lost a spouse, they might be in control of the finances for the most part, or they're very involved, but they have chosen to work with me because at least what a lot of them tell me is there's not a lot of financial advisors in the area that are women, and I want to work with a woman. So
it's true.
I'll take it.
Yeah. That's important to connect, though. We brought on a sales and loan officer last year.
Yeah.
First woman. Great to just have her on the team, because some people would, rather work with her.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense, 100%.
And I'm sure there's a lot of men that would prefer to work with them. Absolutely.
Do you have a lot of self-employed clients that you work with?
We do. And a number of them were self-employed and then they retired, and we continue to manage their assets. Some of them, the relationship began because they're looking for someone to manage their 401k. And then some of them, we just manage their personal assets. So we work with a number of them, but probably in a variety of different ways.
Do you manage their 401k personally and the firm's, or is it a mix?
It's a mix.
Okay.
Can
you manage a firm's 401k or no?
So we can.
Okay.
We manage a number of 401ks
Gotcha.
directly. The other way I was thinking about it is we also manage some individuals' 401ks where the money is still at their plan.
Yep.
Depending on where it's held, we may be able to manage it for them.
Awesome.
Just to make things really more confusing.
Your head's at a pretzel after that. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all good. Moving into 2025. So was it December? December is when you did the event.
Yes.
Trump was elected early November, just took office a few days ago. What's the theme for 2025? How is his presidency going to impact markets this year? It might be a 2-part question. But.
Yeah, it may be a little bit of a 2-part question, because I would say that our expectation for 2025, broadly speaking, is positive. And it's hard to say because we just had 2 years where the S&P was north of 20% with virtually no volatility. And that doesn't happen often. That's only happened a handful of times. The reason we're still optimistic, the market and the economy, is because we do believe that corporate earnings will continue to grow. So Wall Street is telling us that earnings will continue to grow. And this might fall a little bit into the thematics of this year, but there is a transition where over the last couple of years, earnings growth in the S&P was led by the Magnificent Seven that we were talking about earlier, a handful of stocks within the broad S&P.
Yep.
They're telling us this year that the S&P will be much more diversified in the growth of earnings. And so that is something that that's something that gives us a lot of positive, feeling for this year. The other thing that I'll mention that I'm a huge believer of, I talk about this all the time on our webinars, and the media doesn't talk about it at all, is the fact that we as consumers have more money in cash than ever before.
Crazy.
And when I say ever before, it's going back to the pandemic, it's going back to the financial crisis. And I think a lot of the reason that we have so much money in cash is because cash actually paid us something over the last couple of years. You could go and buy a CD, you could buy a money market at 4.75%.
Yeah.
That is starting to fall as the Fed continues to cut rates, which we think they will continue to do. And we as investors will get greedy. And the question is, well, where are we going for more yield? And usually you go to the bond market, and then you end up going to the stock market because the stock market continues to go higher. And so we have seen historically that when that money moves back into the markets, it can be a massive tailwind for the markets. Now, with that said, we are also expecting a market correction. And market correction is when the S&P falls 10%.
Gotcha.
We have not had that in over 2 years. We came super close. But when you have a 10% correction going all the way back to the 1920s, I think, that happens every year and a half, we're due something. And to your point about the election, we know that the markets can get very emotional. And we wouldn't be surprised if there was some type of emotional correction. And so that's part of our thinking. And to be honest, I think a firm like ours, we kind of get excited when the market's correct. Yeah. Because then we can go and say, well, what's on sale right now? And we can go rebalance portfolios and harvest losses in a taxable account, et cetera. So that's something that we're looking forward to this year. But we're also trying to tell our clients, be prepared. And if you use a airplane analogy, right? You probably haven't had to have your seatbelt on in a couple of years. So right now it's put the seatbelt on, expect the turbulence. And a lot of times when the captain tells you to expect the turbulence, you handle it a little bit better. So I think
like that.
Maybe a little more hand-holding this year.
I like I said, we're not going to talk about it. People can ask you. Harvest losses in a taxable account.
Yes.
That could be a question people reach out to you about.
Yeah, I was going to say, if people are concerned about paying taxes in their investments, harvesting losses over time in your taxable portfolio can be absolutely instrumental. And to harvest a loss in a portfolio, it means that you have to have something at a loss, and then you offset that when you sell it with a gain in a very simplistic way. But when there's nothing at a loss, and right, we haven't really had that, it becomes very frustrating. And so that's when someone that's being actively watching your portfolio can add some value.
Gotcha.
When the market's correct.
Awesome. You talked about an asset map that you build out for clients.
Yeah.
Something along the lines of like where they are today and where they're going, right? Does every client gets something along those lines?
Yes. We have, you're good. So we have customized financial planning tools that we utilize with clients that basically in a very simple way, we say, okay, what are you spending versus what are you bringing in income? Even if you're retired, what's your Social Security? Do you have a pension? Do you have investable assets like a real estate property? Whatever it is. And then we map out sort of a forecast of the future of, okay, this is what your assets look like over time. Because ultimately, most clients come to us and say, I just want to run out of money. I want to live the quality of life in retirement that I want to live. I just want to know that I'm not going to run out of money. So we are big believers in the financial planning tools. And Asset Map is kind of the gatherer of all those assets that when we run the financial plan, we start with an asset map to say, okay, here's all your income, here are all your expenses, here are your accounts, taxable, retirement, and here's your home. Do you have a mortgage? Do you have insurance? It's all on one page. So that we can kind of review it to say, what are we missing? And the other piece that our clients like about it is, God forbid something happened to them. Their kids know where it is. They know every account that they have. Oh my gosh, mom has a CD down the road that we never knew about. That comes up often. You can also hand it to your attorney, right? If you're talking about creating a trust, and attorneys love it. The accountants love it, so it's a big piece of what we do.
Love that.
Yeah. Asset Map is the company we use that creates it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Is it called an asset map?
Yes.
Great. Great marketing, great everything. Love it. Be great to just name the company Mortgages. So let's talk about your podcast, Woman on Wealth.
Yes.
You've been doing it quite a while.
Yeah, over 4 years, I think.
Yeah, I mean, almost 100 plus, right? Or close to it.
I'm really close.
You're like
92, 91 or 92 next week, I think.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you bring on other women. Well, no, it started as just women.
It actually just started with me talking, which I think I only had a few
about markets when you made the switch to principal.
Yes, and about different themes of the markets, and I very quickly realized that wasn't sustainable for anybody. So I started interviewing women, and that was the feedback at the time. And when I started the podcast, I interviewed women off LinkedIn.
That was so funny, by the way. That was so funny.
Which part?
nobody could.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So you started interviewing women off LinkedIn.
Well, I was interviewing women on LinkedIn when I decided I wanted to do the podcast, and people always say, how do you start a podcast? And I was like, it's really funny. You Google it, and then you have to think of ideas. And I couldn't think of ideas because that's just not me. So I started, and again, this is the pandemic. I'm, trying to understand the community that I live in. So I just started reaching out to women in the community that looked successful in their own respective roles that were outside of finance. And it was amazing the reaction I got. I think I interviewed 110 women. And so I got all these different ideas. I had women that ended up on the podcast, and some of that flowed into the book. But it was a cool process.
That is awesome.
Again, not my idea, but it worked.
But you start with something.
Yeah.
You never know where it's going to go. But if you just show up each day, it turns into and blossoms into something.
Yes. And by the way, the reason I started the podcast was my business partner, because again, he knew I had presented for so many years, and he's like, "You should have a podcast." And my first reaction was, "On what?" And he's like, think about it. And so, I came back and I'm like, well, this makes sense because I really enjoyed speaking to women, educating women, and I received great feedback. So
that is awesome.
So that's kind of where it went.
That's awesome. So, and then your book.
And then all these ideas kind of flowed into a book because a lot of the women that I interviewed, when I started asking them about their emotions around finance, their emotions around investing, it became very clear that, especially women, but I think anyone is impacted at a very, very young age on how they think around money and finance. And so of course I started digging into it, and the more I did, it's amazing to see the statistics.
Yeah.
So my book originally started very, very heavy in the study, the statistics, and I was part of a writing group, and none of them were in finance, and they all looked at me and they're like, well, what the hell is this? And I was like, well, it's supposed to be some really amazing research. And they're like, what are you going to do with this?
Yeah.
So I did a massive pivot. And the objective of the book is to really, really talk in the most simplistic terms to parents or anyone else that wants to educate girls at a very early age around finance, and starting them early with money concepts like saving, spending, investing, just the basic building blocks that we know if you can start at a young age and build from there, you can be financially savvy. Because I hate to say it, but there are a lot of adults that don't know the building blocks of finance. They don't understand spending versus saving, right? They don't know what a budget is. The word budget terrifies. I think one of my first podcasts was the B word. And that was budgets. It was meant to be budgets. I thought it was kind of cute, but who knows? So that was the whole idea. My goal with it was if parents can teach really young girls some of the essentials of finance, that hopefully in turn they will learn something as well. Sort of my back way of trying to help educate adults as well.
I love that.
So thanks.
Especially the spin on like targeting young girls to like help them.
Yes, and that was difficult. When I started the book, it was just young children. And again, the writing group that I was with, they really emphasized me to focus on girls. And so that's where I went.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And you have the COI group, the women's business group in Westport, right? That you guys do, or you meet once a month?
We have, so I was one of the co-founders of the Women's Business League last year. So it's the first chapter in Connecticut. And yes, it's a professional network of women, and we actually meet twice a month.
Awesome.
So, and we're just getting it off the ground, but they're very, very prominent in the New England area, more in Mass, New Hampshire, and they have a very heavy presence. So we'll see what happens here.
Oh, no way. So is there like events for all of the chapters?
There are, but because we're in Connecticut, that makes it a little bit more challenging.
They're all happening Boston Metro, Portsmouth.
Correct. But if it continues to grow in Connecticut, then hopefully we can have our own down here.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about racing.
Okay.
My favorite part. How long have you been running, biking, swimming?
Just over 10 years. I think last year was the 10 years. I think
you've always been running though, right?
I always ran. I mean, I was never strong,
Yeah.
but I always loved to run.
Yep.
And actually, I started running because an old manager of mine at Lord Abbott was a runner. So he would make me run.
No way. He'd be like, let's go. You're coming
We
with.
didn't really have an HR back then. So,
So funny.
that's
As
what
in,
got
like,
me into it.
he said you had to run, or he ran as a
We
group?
would travel together, and he's like, "You're coming with me, right?" I was like, "Oh, sure." So
That is so funny, of course.
that's how I got into it, and I can't remember if I told you this, but a friend of mine and I got lured into the shortest distance triathlon 10 years ago, which is the sprint triathlon.
Yep.
And that was a third friend of ours who convinced us to do it. She unfortunately passed away of cancer not long after, and so my friend Erin and I continue to do it every year together, and we've slowly grown from the sprint distance to the Olympic distance to then we did a half iron. And the first year we did it, I was like, this is insane. Who would ever do this? We did like 8 of them. We still do them. And then last year was 2 years ago was our first full Ironman distance.
No way.
So
In Florida?
that was Florida.
Where in Florida?
That was Panama City Beach. And I believe it is one of the oldest Ironman locations. I think it's that in Lake Placid. So it's a very popular one. If you can get over the mindset of, we were, I think, on like the 10th floor of the hotel, and you're looking down, and I was like, are those sharks in the water?
Ah!
Holy cow.
No way.
I knew about the jellyfish, but I was like, wow, those sharks are right there around the pier. So to keep myself positive was because there are thousands of people in the water and there's boats and kayaks kind of surrounding the perimeter as you go around the pier. I stayed on the inside at all times. I was like, if anything comes at me, they're going to have to get through a bunch of other people first.
That is crazy.
So yeah, I did get bit by a jellyfish, which I was expecting, but it was beautiful. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was fun.
Did that hurt? Sting?
Yeah, I'm terrified of swimming with jellyfish. So it was just the very end as I was getting out. I got it right in the neck. I looked up to see the beach, and something got me right in the neck. But it was amazing because the water's so clear, which is dangerous because you see these massive jellyfish, but they were so far. They were so deep. The only things you were swimming through were like the little white ones.
Yeah.
Which I swim at Convo Beach, and you have a lot of those there. They're disgusting, but you just kind of swim through them. They don't sting you.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then all of a sudden you pass the pier, and then the water gets pitch black, and you're like, well, now I don't know what I preferred, seeing everything or not seeing everything. So,
yeah, that is funny.
So that's been a challenge for me. I've gone into the water in the past. I've hyperventilated. I've not handled it well. So the swim has always been challenging for me. So
If you're not a swimmer, I feel like that's the case. Like, I'm biking and running now. I don't know if I'd be like ready to.
I wasn't much of a swimmer.
Wow.
And I don't get in open water often. So, yeah.
You were at the Y today, indoors.
I was indoors today, yeah. And in the summertime, we will go to the beach and swim.
To do a full Ironman, do you know how many laps you have to do in an Olympic pool?
Well, I did last year when I had to do it. I can't remember now.
Okay, random question, but to give people context of how much swimming you're doing, that's what I was thinking.
So I think, what I did was I swam 800 yards, and then I think I swam another 400.
Gotcha.
To do the full distance.
Well, it takes me, how long does it take to swim 2 miles? Or the full distance, 2.4?
It was about 123 for me, I think, in the last one.
Oh my God.
I think.
An hour, 23 minutes.
I think so. Around.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's.
I was gonna say it takes me, 30 minutes to walk 2 miles. So I'm guessing maybe 45 minutes. But yeah, hour 23.
I'm not the fastest swimmer. There are a lot of swimmers in my group that are much faster. But
I would
say
a
on
lap
average,
yeah,
I'm probably average for my age group.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And then you recently went to France.
Yes.
That was in June, or when was that?
So that was September.
Awesome.
So this is what happens with anyone that does these triathlons. You kind of check the box to say, I'm just going to say I did it. Here's my bucket list.
Yeah.
So my bucket list, of course, was after doing all these Ironmans, I wanted to do a full. So
Yeah.
I decided to do Florida because it was flat. So I was like, I'll take the jellyfish for flat. And we didn't my friend Erin and I didn't realize it, but we qualified for the World Championships in Florida, which I think I took the last slot for my age group.
Yeah.
She was ahead of me. And so we we decided to go to, how do you not go to the World Championships?
Yeah.
So Ironman is now not just Kona, it's now Kona and Nice, because they split the men and women into separate races.
No way.
So for
Kona's
example,
Hawaii.
So Kona's Hawaii. So last year when we were in Nice, was the first time ever the women competed in Nice. The men were in Kona, and now they're going to flip this year.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So,
How was that trip? Because you actually stayed for a few extra days, right?
yeah, well, we went early. You have to go early because it was the first time I'd ever shipped my bike over on a plane in a box, and we took it apart. I watched the bike shop take it apart. I videoed it. I took pictures. I was like, I got this. And then we got there, and I opened the box, and I was like, there's no way I can put this damn bike together.
No way. What'd you do?
So I found someone to
Oh,
put it
that's
together
so
for
funny.
me. Yeah, I have a picture of it. It was in thousands of pieces. I did put it back together when I got home.
Really?
And I took it apart, but I haven't gone on the bike yet because it's been cold
Bring
out.
it to Trek or something in town.
Yeah. So if you see me going down Fairfield Beach Road and
Walking.
the handlebars fall off, then you'll know I'm trying it for the first time.
So funny. I just shipped down to Florida for this winter, and I've loved that.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't do any of the assemble or deassemble.
Right.
But I found bike shops to do that.
Yes, the bike shops will do it. When we went to Florida, we rented a company that literally just rolled my bike up onto a U-Haul and wrapped it up with a blanket and drove it down.
Oh, what an idea.
It was a great idea. That company has gone bankrupt. And so there was a lot of women at Kona 2 years ago that didn't get their bikes back for a long time. They were sort of held hostage
Oh my gosh.
by the carriers on the
Yep.
barges that were like, if you're not going to pay us, we're not going to give you these bikes back. How
Crazy.
crazy is that? Yeah, I mean, if you, some of these men and women will spend a lot of money on a tri-bike.
Oh my God.
So-
Just to give people 15,000, right?
15,000 it would be typical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's a lot of money.
It's an expensive hobby sport.
It's an expensive investment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
But when you're training for a full iron, you're
Imagine
on
the amount
it.
of time though you spend.
Yeah, I mean, for
training.
because of the elevation for Nice, my friend Aaron and I, we met in northern Connecticut on a Saturday morning just to ride together. We had to ride together for 7-8 hours, and we had to find elevation. So,
Wow, where'd you go? For elevation?
we went into we went west of Hartford up into Mass.
Yep.
And then we circled back around. I literally followed her. I did.
So funny.
I was like, the less I know, the better. So
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
going to follow her.
So funny. Strava maps are great for that.
Yes.
Well, excited for the year. Excited to see
Yes.
how things shake out. I know
I
you're
am.
going to do great. It was a pleasure having you on today.
This was fun.
Oh my God, a blast.
I was driving up here. I'm like, I don't even know what we're going to talk about.
We came prepared.
Yes.
Thank you
yes,
so much.
Thank
It was
you.
awesome.
Oh, it was good to
Oh
see
my
you.
gosh. Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.